before World War II, during, and then after, is bringing some of these German scientists over. Hiding them in this estate, and then processing through, and then going into these other government projects. Which Montauk, I don't know, what did we figure? 30%, 40% were German-oriented scientists.
Oh, really?
Very, very heavy in that investigation. Of course, then there's the rumor that it's a bit more of a rumor that the Germans did have their working time machine back just prior to the war, and it involved sonics.
And lights.
They were stressing the electromagnetic field enough where it went from a potential form for doing work into a realized. And of course, everything is a potential, as the will can end tomorrow. Well, will it or will it not? The degree of it will or will not, and the potentiality, if there is enough information and can be directed and forced, then the potential becomes higher, and then it can do real work. So they had, it was you or Al have the information on that.
Well, that's appeared in a number of these supermarket rags, this idea of the Nazi time machine.
Yeah, but you guys had it independently of that.
Well, we've had people tell us of it, but we don't know how credible the people are. There's no real solid source of it, but there's enough reports coming in from what we consider to be independent people to say that there probably is some base to this rumor. How complete and how functional their time device was, we really don't know.
Yeah. There's also a question you asked earlier about the financing. And do you want to answer that, Preston?
Yeah. If you remember, there was a train robbery in Europe right after World War II where they were bringing Nazi gold and treasures out on this train. There's been a few movies made about it.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Where they blocked off this tunnel and then the train was robbed. That's been traced. And this has been backed up. Going through to Paris, and then it went on a boat, and it went out to Long Island. The boat sunk off of Montauk Point, and what we believe happened is the people from Fort Hero or Montauk Navy Base went out with divers, recovered the gold and such, and the treasure was stashed in the underground at Montauk. This is what they used to run the project for years and years. Then when that money finally ran out, we're talking back in the 40s and 50s, billions of dollars. So in 60s, 70s, and 80s, God knows what it was worth. But when they ran out of money, then it was financed by the military-industrial corporate structure. Mainly the Krupps, IT&T, financed it. So remember, they couldn't have this appear as an appropriation in Washington. Because then Congress would ask, what are we spending all this money on?
Yeah.
So it was funded by all sorts of clandestine funds. And mostly it was a Nazi gold, from what we understand, and then it went over to ITT funding.
What other corporations and so forth have been involved in the project?
RCA was involved.
Rand?
Sperry Rand was involved. Hazeltine, we believe, was involved. AIL was involved. No, Grumman didn't seem to be involved in it. I was handed a list of corporations by one of Senator Goldwater's aides, and today all those corporations are out of business or reorganized.
With a new name.
With a new name, new management. What's interesting to note here also is in the mid-'80s to late '80s, there was something coming around called a core audit, C-O-R-E, in the industrial plants. The excuse for this was looking for the $250 toilet seat. In this audit, they would send bean counters into each plant. They would go to every person in the plant, including the janitor, the floor workers, the people working on production. What are you working on? What does this tell us? If you're looking for the $250 toilet seat, that's management. The guy building this chassis on the floor, he knows nothing of what is charged for it. The fact that they went to everybody and was asked what you're working on, we were told at AIL, do not list, they told us what project to say we were working on. You know, what they were telling us is, well, we take money from this project to get this project going. You're supposedly working on this project. When the orders come in, don't tell them you're working here, but you're working on this project. The only thing that makes sense to me is they're looking for hidden projects. Of course, Montauk was a massive hidden project. And the government, the political government learned its lesson. That you got to find these hidden projects. To find these black hole things they don't know of. They were stung once. The way we understand it, Senator Goldwater, before he retired, called for a joint session of the two houses, and he told the lawmakers that essentially the Montauk Project was a project meant to control their mind on Capitol Hill. Because imagine how much blue smoke there was on Capitol Hill. At that point, this sent the whole congressional off on a rag towards the military-industrial establishment. This is why the military-industrial establishment is almost dead today. They don't dare squeak anymore. They've lost all the freedoms they had. Up until the whistle was blown, the military-industrial establishment had almost carte blanche. Nobody questioned them. Now they're questioned so heavily. The companies are worried, they're upset. The companies are being hit with fine for this, that, and the other thing as they find this stuff, and slowly but surely they're all going out of business.
Everyone is ESP. It's naturally occurring. It's typically in the levels of the third and fourth subconscious behavior, following the typical psychology aspect of things, levels below conscious behavior. I think there's 12 typically is what they speak of.
That's what they generally talk of.
There are actually more when you speak of the esoteric, but it's levels third and fourth subconscious. That's if it has not been monkeyed with. Everyone uses their ESP daily. It's incorporated. It's the reason the ESP is kept away from the conscious to the degree it is because a person's connection to these alternate parallel zones, there's vast amounts of information. And the conscious behavior would become overwhelmed with it. So there's a necessary screening, filtering up to the subconscious, up to the conscious level.
Which is the evolutionary process, is it?
Right. So certainly there are the avenues can certainly become clouded with daily stresses and learned phenomenons and habits and such. And, most people do get an idea these days that some people who have these esoteric considerations, psychics, they do have something to them. But it's still kind of in the infancy that everyone has this naturally occurring process that is at their disposal and can be used to. We also speak of that long-term memory is used every day to reach this information zone called a akashic. It's an esoteric holding zone of information, and then everyone uses it daily for the long term. Extension of the energy outside the body to the zone and acquire it. But that's certainly it's not standard stuff, and is basic. It's basic in metaphysics. It's nothing new, but needs to be presented in a way which is non-threatening to the person and is natural. It's part of living and growing in children. It's they have these very strange and unencumbered sense of barriers, and they go out and their energy leaves their body and they come out with these fantastic stories, yet they're hoo-hooed. So we all can learn from children, and that's that unstructured, how do we say, unbarriered sense of love and hate. Other than all the space-time and the Boys Project, certainly is that very queer sense. But one of the buildings I walked into, that what I came up with, that E.T., that very
that yellow house,
very strange discourse of energy that was very prevalent. There was, on Preston's video, there's this handrail that's so very low.
Yeah, it's low.
Very
Very
low
low.
to the... There's other...
The number of
almost
the
tiles.
hand railings in these buildings were low.
Mhm.
As if either small people or children going up and down those stairs.
Mhm.
I think what you're asking about is the alien involvement.
Yeah, of which I don't have much recall in my sense. That's very different.
Mhm.
I was
Were
very...
you aware of it when you were involved?
I'm sure I was. There's a particular pattern, or vulgarity is not the word, but it's a raw energy sense
Mhm.
that some of the ET groups have. Certainly not
Yeah.
all. The more evolved or the more forgiving type. But there are, the Preston's got 3 or 4 stories, and I don't mean to say the story per se, but cataloging of some of his memories regarding some of the forms you were involved in.
Mhm.
Well, if in the mid-70s you went down to about the 2nd and 3rd level underground at Montauk, this stretched out for miles as you got down. You know, each level built bigger and bigger.
Mhm.
In the bottom levels maybe were 5 miles square on a side.
Mhm.
In the 2nd and 3rd levels, all of a sudden there appeared in the mid-70s a UFO underground. A disc-shaped flying saucer. And somehow we believe this is one of the sources that were trapped in the Eldridge experiment. And, you know, Duncan says it potentialized itself. It took a number of years to appear. All of a sudden, in the mid-70s, 75, 76, there it was, solid. And it was sitting in a huge magnetite deposit. There's a lot of magnetite out at Montauk. This, for some reason, disturbs the anti-gravity drive of the UFO, so it couldn't get out. It was stuck there. So, of course, this would be the first alien involvement. Yeah, spacecraft out there.
Mhm.
They alien constructed spacecraft. Now, of course, there are some live aliens taken out of that thing. Al Bielek can tell you quite a nice story that he was involved in communicating with the aliens out that were underground.
Mhm.
Now, later on, the whole Montauk project, when we started to go deeper into the mind aspect and the time aspect,
Mhm.
there was a lot of implementation of alien technology at Montauk. I personally believe that